So in this demonstration, we're going to explore what a line is, and I'm going to give you some different ways to think about lines. So here I've drawn 4 boxes. In each box, we're going to explore a different way to make a line. So the most common form of line, the kind of line that most people are familiar with, is called the continuous line. So here, I'm going to draw a simple continuous line. But of course, there are a number of different ways we can make lines. Now, as we go through each variation, I want you to keep in mind our definition of a line. A line is any path the eye can follow. So in this box, I'm going to make a similar line, but instead of doing one continuous line, I'm going to create it from a number of dots. Now, individually, each of these is merely a dot, not a line. But taken together, they absolutely create a path for our eye to follow. So we might think about this as a broken line. It's a line that's been implied with a number of individual components. But each dot almost operates like a stepping stone of a path. Our eye easily hops from one dot to the next in an obvious path that is very similar to our first line. Okay, so let's keep going. So for this next exploration, I'm going to lightly draw the line before I start to fill it in. So I'm going to use this very light, soft line as a guide. I'm going to draw a series of vertical lines that go from our line to the bottom of the box. So hopefully you can see that in this box, I'm drawing probably a couple dozen individual straight vertical lines. But when they're all put together like this, they stop reading as individual lines and tend to make a shape. I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and get rid of my initial guideline that I drew, so we are only left with these vertical lines. So the way our mind interprets this is very interesting. I drew a series of individual vertical lines, but because they're so close together, our mind tends to group them into a shape. This curved line is the most prominent path that our eye easily follows. It's actually easier for our eyes to follow this implied line than it is to follow any of the individual vertical lines that I actually drew. These vertical lines group together to imply an edge. Now, let's explore one more way to think about line. So for our final variation, I am once again going to draw a very light curved line. Now for this line, I'm actually going to fill in this bottom section with a number of dark strokes. So I'm slowly going to fill in this shape with dark, soft lines. I'm going to go right up to the edge of our line here. I'm going to try and draw this so that the individual strokes all blend together. Now to do this, I may need to go over and over the lines that we've drawn. So when we get up to our curved line, what I want to do is soften this edge. And up here, I'm also going to add some value as well. I'm going to keep this value very, very light. My goal here is to maintain this line, but make it as soft as I can. So what we have here are 2 areas of value, a darker area down below and a lighter area at the top. Now the boundary in between them is very hazy and soft, but we can still see the implication of the same curved line we've been working with. I want to soften this line as much as I can while still having it be visible. So here we have 4 different ways to create the same path the eye can follow. Here we have a very common and conventional continuous line. Here we have a broken line created from individual dots. Here we've implied our line by creating a series of vertical lines of different heights. Together, these lines imply our curved line. And finally, we've created a very soft version of this line that's barely visible. But despite its soft edge, we can still detect the same curved line. So hopefully this has illustrated our definition of a line. A line is any path the eye can follow. In each of these, our eye can follow a remarkably similar path despite the fact that each of these lines has been created in a vastly different way. So hopefully we're starting to expand your idea of what a line can be. Now let's take this idea a little further. In my beginner's guide to drawing, I introduced a few basic ways we can make lines. So here's a quick reminder of some of the most basic ways we can vary our line quality. Lines can be dark or light. Lines can be thin or thick, hard or soft, straight or curved, short or long. You should already be familiar with these dimensions of line, but these basic variations can be combined in an infinite number of ways to create all kinds of effects on the page. So now, I'm going to introduce a project that will allow us to explore different ways of making lines and combine your vocabulary of line. Our goal is to be able to create as many different kinds of lines as possible. We want to create drawings that have a wide range of lines and marks. We want to do drawings that excite the viewer, that pull them in and take every opportunity to communicate something to them. Remember, every line you draw is communicating something to the viewer, whether you intend it or not. Exploring the possibility of line and expanding your vocabulary of line is the best way to take control of this reality. This project is called the ever-changing line. During this project, you're going to start drawing a line, but every few inches, the line is going to change. Now, you'll see me demonstrate this project on 18 by 24 inch paper, which is what I recommend. But as always, you are welcome to use whatever size paper you like. So let's head to the drawing board. So for this demonstration, my goal is to create a single line that moves its way across the surface of the page. But as this line moves across the page, I want it to change over and over again. I want to create a path for my eye to follow, but I want this path to be made up of as many different kinds of lines and marks as I can imagine. I'll begin simply making a simple curved line. But very quickly, I'm going to thicken that line, drawing it with the side of my pencil. Next, I want this thick line to start to be more textured. So from here, I want this line to become more angular, and I'm going to switch to the tripod grip. So I want you to take note that the tip of my pencil just snapped off. If you don't break the tip of your pencil at least once while doing this project, then you are not pushing your pencil far enough to its limits. Use my drafting brush to sweep away any little bits of the pencil lead and continue. So from these more angular jagged lines, I'll draw some more straight lines. And I'll make them at right angles. And from here, I'll try some softer lines that come together to create an interesting texture or pattern. Now, it's important to note that your lines don't have to be continuous. You can start to use individual marks to continue the path for the eye to follow. Maybe these smaller marks start to become a little bigger. I'm going to switch my pencil grip again. Switching pencil grips is a really great strategy that will allow you to engage the pencil in different ways. So from here, maybe I'll try out some different kinds of marks. So I will make a dot, but make the edge a little more textural. Start to make them a little bit bigger. Now I'll start to change them once again. I'll switch back to the tripod grip. Different kind of line. From here, I will make a number of parallel horizontal lines that create a shape, but also continue our line. Next, I will come back over this way, making some nice, beautiful, soft-edged, curved marks. And maybe now I'll make some very smoke-like marks. We'll make these smoky kinds of marks thicken and then perhaps get a little thinner again. And go over this one more time. Now remember, this is all just an exploration. We are not trying to make any particular kinds of lines or marks. We are simply exploring what the pencil can do. Next, I'll change my grip again. I'm going to hold the pencil far back, see what kinds of lines and marks this makes. Next, I will try holding the pencil very close to the tip and grind it into the paper. Next, I'll make some tiny little marks. This is not planned out. I'm just making this up as I go along. Next, I'll make some heavy strokes. And then maybe I'll make some very light, almost rain-like strokes. So hopefully you can see that we've created a path that our eye can follow all the way around the page. So for this next section, I'm going to combine some incredibly soft marks with a harder line that runs through the middle of them. Next, I can create some sharp marks. That are held together by some very fluffy, softer marks. So here I'm combining different kinds of lines together to create different effects. Here, maybe I will try a back and forth kind of line that starts to get thicker. At every step of the way, I'm trying to create something unique, something I haven't tried before. Here, maybe I'll try tapping the tip of the pencil against the paper like it's a drumstick. Next, maybe I'll hit it a little harder to see what kinds of lines and marks it makes like this. And maybe I'll conclude the line with a nice, big, spirally shape. So what we have here is an experiment in line and mark making. So here I have drawn a single line, a single path for our eye to follow around the surface of the page. But this path is made up of numerous different kinds of lines and marks. I've tried to hold the pencil in different ways. I've tried to move my hand in different ways to see what kinds of lines and marks I can create. Remember, the goal here is not to make a good drawing, but to explore, to experiment, to see what our pencil can really do and push it to its limits. Now, I don't know how these lines and marks may be useful in a drawing, but what I do know is that I never want to feel limited by my vocabulary of line. I want to have a wide range of lines and marks that I'm familiar with to use depending on the circumstances. Doing this kind of project will allow you to increase your vocabulary of lines and marks. And that'll ensure that you have many different ways to communicate with and to connect with your viewers.